What if strength isn't hiding your emotions, but facing them? We all crave a kind of untouchable strength, the ability to walk through criticism, betrayal, and loss without losing the center of who we are. We imagine an armor so perfect that no word can pierce it, no look can wound it, no silence can freeze it. But Carl Jung would say, that fantasy is not strength. It's avoidance dressed as power. Jung believed our lives are not defined by what happens to us, but by what we choose to become through what happens. Pain, then, is not simply an enemy to escape, it is a threshold. Cross it with awareness, and you grow. Flee it, and it follows, wearing the faces of anxiety, depression, addiction, or the same relationship repeated with new names. The first illusion we must dismantle is the idea that pain comes only from the outside. Yes, the world wounds, people fail us, plans collapse, but the deepest cut is often internal. The old injury we never tended, the rejected parts of the self we locked in the cellar, the no we never learned to say, the yes we offered against our own truth. Jung's warning is stark. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So the journey to untouchable strength does not begin with thicker armor. It begins with truer contact, with the very places we have refused to feel. Look closely at how we usually respond to hurt. We tighten the persona, the social mask that says, "I'm fine." We rehearse the perfect lines, perform politeness, hold our breath until the room is safe again. The persona is useful. Society needs it. But when it hardens into identity, it becomes a prison. You start mistaking composure for wholeness, applause for belonging, survival for life. The problem isn't that you wear a mask. The problem is when the mask wears you. Pain exposes that. It cracks the persona and lets light in from below. The shadow. Anger you never voiced, grief you never grieved, desire you never owned, tenderness you never trusted. Our culture calls all this negative. Jung didn't. He saw vital energy trapped in the dark. Integrate it, and you gain courage, clarity, creativity. Repress it, and it leaks through sarcasm, self-sabotage, burnout, or the sudden explosion that came out of nowhere. It never comes out of nowhere. It comes from the basement. This is why avoiding pain backfires. The feelings you refuse to feel don't die. They go underground and gather force. They recruit dreams, symptoms, body aches, strange coincidences. They tug at you in the night and trip you in the day. The more you sprint away, the more you run in circles. So what does real strength look like in Jung's mirror? It looks like turning toward, not dramatizing, not drowning, not performing pain, but meeting it, naming it, staying with it long enough to learn its language. Jung called this stance active imagination when practiced with images, and conscious relationship when practiced with feelings. You agree to listen without collapsing, to breathe without bargaining, to ask, "What are you trying to show me?" instead of, "How do I make you stop?" Real strength is the capacity to remain present at the edge of discomfort and to keep choosing truth over image. There is a paradox here. The more you chase invulnerability, the more fragile you become. Because every sharp word, every perceived slight, every unpredictable moment becomes a threat to your armor. But when you allow yourself to feel, to actually register the ache, the sting, the disappointment, something shifts. The pain you were sure would drown you becomes information. The feeling becomes a bridge back to yourself. You begin to notice the patterns. How you over-explain when you're afraid of abandonment. How you go silent when anger rises. How you become helpful when you want to be loved. These are not moral failures. They are strategies your younger self used to stay safe. Honor them, and then update them. Safety bought with self-betrayal is not safety. It is slow disappearance. Untouchable strength is not numbness, it is integrity. Your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions aligned in one direction, toward the truth. Integrity does not make you less sensitive, it makes you more coherent. Sensitivity without coherence is overwhelm. Sensitivity with coherence is intuition. Jung would say that every time you refuse to feel, you feed the shadow. Every time you agree to feel, you feed the self, the deeper center that can hold opposites without tearing. And this is the heart of the work. To become a person who can hold complexity without splitting into mask or meltdown. So begin exactly where you are. Take one place of pain that keeps repeating, a criticism that hooks you, a boundary you can't hold, a loneliness that returns as soon as the room is quiet. Sit with it as you would with a child you love. No fixing, no shaming. Breathe. Ask it to speak plainly. Then write what it says. Draw what it feels like. Walk while you listen. Give it shape until the vague ache becomes a specific message. It may say, "I'm angry you never defend us," or "I miss who we were before we started pleasing everyone," or "I'm terrified no one will stay if we stop performing." None of these are enemies. They are exiled allies. Invite them back to the table not to run the house, but to have a voice in it. This is not indulgence. It is governance. The kingdom of the psyche cannot be ruled by a mask. It requires a sovereign self, one who can hear both the rational minister and the wild messenger from the forest, and then decide. And when the outer world strikes, as it will, your response changes. Criticism still stings, but now it lands on ground you've already walked. Betrayal still hurts, but it doesn't destroy your map. You don't rush to silence, nor to spectacle. You return to the center you have cultivated in quiet hours. Breath, body, boundary, truth. You feel, you decide, you act. You do not outsource your worth to the approval or confusion of others. That is the beginning of untouchable strength. Not a fortress around the heart, but a foundation under it. In the chapters ahead, we will go deeper. How repression breeds repetition. How projection makes enemies out of mirrors. How acceptance is not surrender, but integration. How individuation, Jung's path to wholeness, turns pain into meaning. But the doorway is here, now, in this simple and radical practice. Refuse to abandon yourself when you hurt. If you can do that, if you can stay present at the very moment your old life taught you to disappear, you will feel something unexpected rise to meet you. Not steel, not stone. Something larger, quieter, and infinitely more trustworthy. The first step was to see that true strength does not mean shutting pain out, but turning toward it. Now we must go deeper, into the structures that shape how we face suffering, the persona, the shadow, and the self. Jung called the persona the mask we wear to survive in society. It is the version of ourselves carefully edited for approval, polite, competent, agreeable, attractive. Without it, life would be chaos. We need masks to play our roles, the teacher, the partner, the friend, the leader. But the problem is not the mask itself. The problem is when we believe the mask is all we are. Imagine someone who has been the responsible one all their life. They answer every call, pick up every burden, smile through every disappointment. The world applauds. So reliable, people say, but inside, the cost grows heavier. Anger simmers, resentment whispers, exhaustion creeps in, and still, the mask smiles on. The persona is a bargain, safety and belonging, in exchange for authenticity. But over time, the bargain turns poisonous. You become trapped in a role, living for applause instead of truth. Pain, in this sense, is not a glitch but a signal. It is the soul's rebellion against the tyranny of the persona. Behind the persona waits the shadow. These are the parts of us exiled to the dark, our grief, our jealousy, our creativity, our rage. Culture calls them negative. Jung called them necessary. They are not polished or polite, but they carry energy. Energy for change, energy for creation, energy for wholeness. But here is the paradox. The more we repress the shadow, the stronger it grows. Silence it, and it shouts in dreams. Ignore it, and it erupts in symptoms. Deny it, and it leaks out sideways, in addictions, outbursts, betrayals. The more we cling to the persona, the more the shadow demands to be seen. This is why Jung insisted, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To reclaim our strength, we must walk into the very place we fear, the basement of our psyche, where the shadow waits. Consider how avoidance breeds repetition. A child raised in chaos may vow never to repeat that pattern, but if they repress the fear, if they bury the anger, they unconsciously seek out partners who echo the same wounds. They fall into the same fights, the same betrayals, the same heartbreak. Fate, Jung would say, is just the unconscious lived out in daylight. Until we face the shadow, we are doomed to meet it in the world. This is the cruel cycle. We think we are escaping pain by avoiding it, but avoidance only guarantees its return. Anxiety, depression, toxic relationships, these are not random punishments. They are the shadow knocking, louder each time until we listen. So, how do we break the cycle? By practicing what Jung called integration, the act of bringing what was unconscious into awareness and then weaving it into the fabric of our lives. The practice begins with a simple but radical act: feeling. When pain arises, the persona says, smile, hide it, keep moving. But integration says, stay, listen. What is this telling me? This is not wallowing, it is witnessing. Step 1. Feel. Let the sensation be there. Anger in the chest, grief in the throat, fear in the gut. Breathe into it. Name it. Refuse the urge to explain it away. Step 2. Name. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Draw it if words are too heavy. Naming transforms vague suffering into clear signal. I am angry because I feel unseen. I am sad because I lost what mattered. I am afraid because I do not trust myself. Clarity is the first crack in avoidance. Step 3. Integrate. Ask, what does this part of me need? Anger may need a boundary. Grief may need a ritual of goodbye. Fear may need reassurance or courage. Integration does not mean indulging every feeling. It means giving each a seat at the table so it no longer sabotages from the dark. This practice is not glamorous, it is not fast, but it is transformative. Each time you feel, name, and integrate, you reclaim energy once lost to repression. Slowly, the shadow becomes less of a monster and more of a guide. Slowly, pain becomes less of a threat and more of a teacher. And then, something extraordinary happens. The persona begins to crack, not from collapse, but from choice. You no longer need the mask as tightly as before. You discover moments when you can be honest, raw, imperfect, and survive. Perhaps even be loved. This is the second step toward untouchable strength. Realizing that avoiding pain only breeds repetition, but integrating it breeds freedom. The persona may win applause, but only integration wins wholeness. If the persona hides and the shadow demands, then projection is the bridge between the two. For Jung, projection was one of the most deceptive forces in human life. It is the mind's way of unloading what it cannot face within, by casting it onto others without knowing. Think of the person who insists their partner is unfaithful, though no evidence exists. Beneath the accusation lies their own buried desire, or their own terror of abandonment. Think of the colleague who calls you lazy, while secretly drowning in procrastination. Think of the friend who resents your confidence, while hiding their own longing to be bold. These are not random misunderstandings. They are projections, the shadow in disguise. Nowhere does projection sting more than in love. Jung observed that we rarely fall for people as they are. We fall for the qualities we have disowned in ourselves. At first, this feels divine. We call it chemistry, destiny, soulmate energy. But in truth, it is our unconscious demanding attention. We are not meeting only them. We are meeting ourselves in their eyes. And here is the tragedy. When the illusion breaks, when the projection collapses, we blame the other. We say, "You deceived me. You changed." But Jung would whisper, "No, they did not deceive you. You deceived yourself. You fell in love with your own reflection on their surface." This is why painful relationships repeat. Until we withdraw our projections, we are condemned to reenact them with new faces. The partner who abandons us is not the first. They are the echo of childhood neglect. The boss who belittles us is not unique. They are the echo of a parent who never approved. Fate, once again, is just the unconscious played out in daylight. But pain, Jung insisted, is the doorway to liberation. Each heartbreak, each betrayal, each collapse of projection is not punishment but initiation. It is the psyche's way of saying, "This is yours. Take it back." The task is not easy. To withdraw projection is to admit, "The anger I feel toward you is my own. The need I demand from you is my own. The light I worship in you is my own." It feels like death to let the illusion die. But it is also the birth of freedom. For in that moment, you stop outsourcing your wholeness. You begin to cultivate it within. This is individuation in action. Jung's vision of human development was not about perfection or purity, but about wholeness, a self that can hold opposites without splitting. To individuate is to reclaim every projection, to integrate every fragment, to gather the scattered pieces of soul back into one center. Pain is the catalyst. Without suffering, the persona never cracks, the shadow never emerges, the projections never reveal themselves. Pain is the great revealer. It strips away illusion, confronts us with our exiles, and demands integration. Jung was clear. Avoiding pain does not prevent suffering. It multiplies it. Only by facing it consciously can we transform it. This is why he wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Think of the alchemists, whose strange experiments Jung loved. They believed transformation required fire. The base metal must be heated, broken down, dissolved, until something new could emerge. So too with the psyche. Pain is the fire. It burns the persona, melts the projections, reveals the shadow, until, at last, the self can be born from the crucible. And so, the third step toward untouchable strength is not to avoid relationships that wound, but to use them as mirrors. Every disappointment, every conflict, every heartbreak carries a hidden map. The question is not, "Why did they do this to me?" but "What in me is being shown here?" This does not excuse cruelty. It does not justify betrayal. It does not mean you should remain in toxic places. It means that even as you leave, even as you set boundaries, you can take with you the gift of awareness. This pattern lives in me too, and now I can face it. Individuation is not isolation. It is not building walls so high no one can hurt you. It is the opposite. It is the courage to stay open, to engage, to love, while also reclaiming the projections that try to slip away. It is living in the tension between vulnerability and strength without dissolving into either. In this sense, pain is not the end of the story. It is the teacher that forces you toward the self. We began with the fantasy of invulnerability, a fortress of steel that nothing could pierce. But Jung showed us a different vision. True, untouchable strength is not cold armor. It is warm integration. It is not the absence of pain, but the presence of wholeness. To become this kind of strong is not to hide behind the persona, not to deny the shadow, not to cast your wounds onto others. It is to turn toward each fragment, each exile, and say, "You belong here too." This is individuation, Jung's great word for the lifelong process of becoming who you are. Not who the world demanded you be, not who your fears forced you to be, but who you already are, beneath the noise and the masks. Individuation is not escape from pain, it is the transformation of pain into meaning. Think of the wounds you once wished away, the heartbreak that nearly ended you, the betrayal that shattered your trust, the rejection that made you question your worth. In Jung's vision, these are not accidents to erase. They are raw material. They are the lead that, through the fire of consciousness, becomes gold. But here is the paradox. Individuation is not glamorous. It does not make you untouchable in the sense of being beyond all hurt. You will still feel. You will still bleed. You will still grieve. The difference is this: you will not shatter. You will not lose yourself. You will not mistake pain for identity. Instead, each wound deepens your roots. Each betrayal sharpens your clarity. Each disappointment strengthens your boundary. You become like a tree, scarred, yes, but also unshakable. Rooted not because no storms came, but because you faced every storm and grew stronger in the soil of it. This is the final stage of Jung's path: integration. The shadow no longer stalks you because you have befriended it. The persona no longer imprisons you because you wear it lightly, as a costume, not a skin. Projections no longer rule you because you take them back, one by one, and weave them into yourself. And what emerges is not a hero without flaws, but a human who is whole, sensitive and strong, open and boundaried, capable of love without losing selfhood, capable of solitude without collapsing into despair. This is true untouchable strength, the freedom to live without fear of breaking, because even when you break, you know how to remake. Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." This is the heart of individuation. Pain will happen, loss will come, shadows will rise, but in each moment you choose. You choose to feel instead of flee, to integrate instead of repress, to grow instead of repeat. And so, the final invitation is this: stop waiting to be free of pain before you begin to live. Begin now, in the very place you hurt. Sit with it. Listen. Integrate. Each act of presence, each refusal to abandon yourself, builds the foundation of untouchable strength. It will not look like armor. It will look like authenticity. It will feel like coherence. It will move like freedom. And when the world throws its worst at you, criticism, betrayal, rejection, you will stand, not because you are numb, but because you are whole. So remember, to be untouchable is not to feel nothing. It is to feel everything and remain yourself. That is the strength no storm can steal. That is the freedom no mask can counterfeit. That is the wholeness Jung believed was the destiny of every soul willing to face its shadow and claim its light.